I'll expand part 1 of your story into a 680-word narrative with simple language, natural tone, and engaging content that's human-centered while avoiding any content that could violate YouTube policies. Michael Daniels sat alone in his office, staring at the quarterly reports spread across his mahogany desk. The numbers were good. ValueMart was growing steadily, with 25 stores across 3 states. As founder and CEO, he should have felt proud, but something was missing. The connection he once had with his business, with the people who made it run day after day, had somehow slipped away. He leaned back in his chair and looked at the framed photo on his desk, the grand opening of his first store, where he'd worked alongside just 5 employees, knowing each by name, understanding their lives, their struggles, their dreams. Now, with over 1,200 employees, he couldn't name 10 of them if his life depended on it. The thought bothered him more than he cared to admit. Yesterday, during the executive meeting, his operations manager Lisa had presented data showing increasing turnover rates among floor staff. "It's just the nature of retail," she'd said with a shrug. The other executives nodded in agreement, but Michael couldn't accept it so easily. "We're not just numbers on a spreadsheet," he muttered to himself, closing the folder. He turned to his computer and typed "CEO connects with employees" into the search bar. Several articles popped up about business owners working undercover in their own companies. The concept grabbed his attention immediately. That night, he couldn't sleep. The idea kept turning over in his mind. What if he worked in his own stores, not as the boss, but as an ordinary employee? What would he learn? Would it change anything? By morning, his decision was made. He called his assistant and cleared his calendar for the next month. "Family emergency," he explained, knowing the half-truth would raise fewer questions than the full one. He sat down with Brian, his most trusted vice president and oldest friend. "You think I've lost my mind, don't you?" Michael asked after explaining his plan. Brian laughed. "Completely, but I also think it might be the best idea you've had in years." Together, they created Mark Davis, a middle-aged man looking to start over after being laid off from a warehouse job. Brian would handle any emergencies while Michael was undercover, and no one else would know the truth, not even the store managers. The transformation took place in Michael's bathroom. He watched in the mirror as the barber Brian had hired trimmed his normally neat haircut into something less polished. Next came the beard, something he hadn't worn since college. A touch of temporary hair color added gray at his temples. Glasses with clear lenses completed the disguise. "I hardly recognize myself," Michael said, turning his head from side to side. "That's the point," Brian replied with a grin. "Just remember, you're Mark now. Mark who needs this job and has to follow orders." Michael nodded, the weight of what he was about to do finally sinking in. He'd never stocked shelves, never operated a cash register, never dealt with unhappy customers face to face. What if he couldn't handle it? What if he failed at the very jobs he expected others to do flawlessly? His new life began at 4:30 the next morning. Dressed in jeans and a plain button-up shirt, he drove to the flagship store in Springfield in his old pickup truck, rather than his usual luxury car. The store sat quiet and dark, a few cars already in the parking lot, early shift workers arriving to prepare for the day. Heart pounding, fake resume in hand, Michael took a deep breath and walked through the employee entrance for the first time. The door closed behind him with a solid click, sealing him into a world he owned but had never truly known. Whatever happened next would change him forever, he was sure of that much. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Michael, now Mark, stood awkwardly in the back room of his own store. Around him, employees hustled about, preparing for the day ahead. Some looked half asleep, others moved with the confident efficiency that comes from years of routine. None of them gave him more than a passing glance, just another new hire in a business where faces change regularly. "You must be the new guy," a voice called out. Michael turned to see a short woman with streaks of gray in her dark ponytail approaching him. The name tag pinned to her blue ValueMart vest read Elena. Her eyes were tired but kind as she extended her hand. "I'm supposed to show you the ropes today." Michael shook her hand, surprised by the calluses he felt there. "Mark," he replied, his voice catching slightly. "Thanks for helping me out." "First day nerved, huh?" Elena smiled knowingly. "Don't worry. Stocking shelves isn't rocket science. Just follow me and try to keep up." She handed him a box cutter and led him through a maze of cardboard boxes to the store's dairy section. "We start with milk and eggs," she explained. "They go fast, and people get cranky if they come in at 6 a.m. and can't get their breakfast stuff." Michael watched Elena expertly slice open a box of milk cartons. Her movements were quick and precise, no wasted motion. When she handed him a box to try, his cut was jagged and awkward. "Like this," she demonstrated again, quick and straight, "and watch your fingers." Had a guy last month who needed 7 stitches because he wasn't paying attention. By 7 a.m., Michael's back was already aching. He'd never imagined milk could be so heavy, or that arranging it with the newest dates at the back would be so time-consuming. Elena worked twice as fast as he did, occasionally glancing back to check his progress. "Not bad for a beginner," she said, though they both knew he was slowing her down. As the store opened, customers began trickling in. An elderly man approached Elena with a warm smile. "Morning, Mrs. Chen," Elena greeted him. "The usual." "Yes, please," he replied. "My wife sent me for milk, but you know I always forget which kind." Elena reached for a specific carton. "Lactose-free, 1%. How is Mrs. Chen's arthritis?" "Better with the warmer weather, thank you for asking." Michael watched in amazement as similar exchanges happened throughout the morning. Elena knew dozens of customers by name, remembered their preferences, asked about their families. This wasn't in any training manual. This was genuine human connection. During their break, they sat in the cramped employee lounge. Michael unwrapped his sandwich while Elena heated something fragrant in the microwave. "Homemade tamales," she explained when she caught him looking. "My grandmother's recipe. Want one?" The gesture touched him unexpectedly. He accepted gratefully, and the flavors were incredible, nothing like the catered lunches he ate in his executive dining room. "So what brought you to Value Mart?" Elena asked between bites. Michael remembered his cover story. "Lost my warehouse job. Need to pay the bills." Elena nodded sympathetically. "Been there. Started here 8 years ago myself, right after coming from Mexico. Wasn't supposed to be forever, but," she shrugged, "life happens." "Do you like it here?" Michael asked, genuinely curious. She considered the question. "Mostly. The work is hard, but the hours are steady. Some managers are better than others." "The pay?" She paused. "Well, it keeps food on the table, mostly." As they returned to the floor, Michael noticed Elena wincing as she lifted a heavy box. "Back problems?" he asked. "Just getting old," she laughed, but he could see the pain in her eyes. "Can't afford to slow down, though." By the end of his first day, Michael was exhausted in ways he hadn't experienced since his earliest days starting the business. His hands were scratched, his feet throbbed, and his respect for Elena and her colleagues had grown immeasurably. As he drove home in his pickup truck, he realized how little he truly understood about the daily lives of the people who made his success possible. And this was just day one. The days stretched into a week as Michael continued his undercover work at the store. His muscles ached less now, and his hands were developing the same calluses that Elena's had. He was getting better at the job too, learning the rhythm of unloading delivery trucks, stocking shelves, rotating products, and helping customers find things. But more importantly, he was building trust with Elena and the other workers who had no idea their boss was working alongside them. "You're catching on pretty fast for an old guy," Elena joked one morning as they unloaded a pallet of canned goods. Michael laughed. "Thanks, I think." He carefully arranged soup cans with the labels facing forward, just as Elena had taught him. "I'm trying." "That's more than I can say for the last 3 people they sent me. Quit within days." She shook her head. "Nobody wants to work hard anymore." "Why do you?" Michael asked, genuinely curious. "Work hard, I mean. Nobody's watching most of the time." Elena paused, seeming surprised by the question. "Because it matters, you know. People count on us. That old lady who comes in for her cat food every Tuesday, what if she couldn't find it because I didn't do my job?" She shrugged. "Plus, I like knowing I did things right." During lunch breaks, Michael learned more about Elena's life. She had come to America 12 years ago, leaving behind family in Mexico. She had a son, Luis, who was now in middle school. She rented a small 2-bedroom apartment about a mile from the store and walked to work most days to save on gas money. You should see Louis with computers, she said proudly while showing Michael a photo on her worn phone case. So smart. His teachers say he could get scholarships for college if he keeps his grades up. On Thursday, they were assigned to the freezer section. The cold air hit Michael like a wall as they entered the massive walk-in freezer. Elena handed him an extra jacket. Here, the store ones are too thin. I bring this from home. Don't you need it? Michael asked, feeling guilty. Unused to it, she said, though he noticed her rubbing her hands together frequently as they worked. Later, as they arranged frozen vegetables, another employee stuck his head in. Hey Elena, phone call, it's Louis's school. Her face immediately tensed with worry. Michael watched as she hurried out, returning 15 minutes later with a forced smile. Everything okay? He asked cautiously. Fine, she said, too quickly. Just needed to sign some permission form I forgot. But something had changed. The easy conversation between them fell quiet as they worked. Michael caught her checking her phone repeatedly, looking more stressed with each glance. During their afternoon break, they sat at a small table in the corner of the break room. Elena's lunch remained untouched as she stared at her phone. Really, what's wrong? Michael finally asked. Is Louis okay? Elena looked up, clearly debating whether to share her troubles. Finally, she sighed. His school is taking a field trip to the Science Museum. $50 for the bus and ticket. That's a lot, Michael agreed, trying not to think about how he'd spent more than that on coffee last week without blinking. It's not just that. She lowered her voice. Louis has been getting headaches. Bad ones. The school nurse called because he was in her office again today. I need to take him to the doctor, but she trailed off, shaking her head. But what? My insurance has a $500 deductible. I've been saving, but between rent and everything else. She straightened up, forcing another smile. It's nothing. I'll figure it out. I always do. The conversation moved on, but Michael couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, he called Brian, his VP who knew about the undercover mission. Did you know our health insurance has such high deductibles? He asked without preamble. Sure, Brian replied. It's pretty standard for the industry, actually better than most retail places. Michael thought about Elena, working in freezing temperatures, skipping lunch, worrying about $50 for a field trip while her son needed medical care. It's not good enough, he said quietly. What was that? Brian asked. Nothing. Just learning a lot here, Michael replied. Before hanging up, he added, Hey, can you look into something for me? Pull the employment file for Elena Rodriguez at the Springfield store. I want to know everything about her, her performance reviews, her pay history, everything. Something wrong? Brian sounded concerned. No, Michael said, staring out his window at the night sky. Something might finally be right. 2 weeks had passed since Michael began his undercover journey, and the morning routine had become familiar. He arrived at the store just as the delivery trucks pulled in, nodding to the night crew finishing their shift. The fluorescent lights and hum of the freezers no longer felt strange. What had changed was how he saw everything, not as assets and liabilities on a spreadsheet, but as the foundation of people's livelihoods. Today, they were stocking cleaning supplies, bottles of window cleaner, all-purpose spray, and floor polish lined up in neat rows. Michael noticed Elena working more slowly than usual, dark circles under her eyes. Rough night? He asked, lining up bottles with practiced efficiency. Louis couldn't sleep, she replied quietly. The headaches are getting worse. Before Michael could respond, Elena's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her face paled. I need to take this, she said, walking quickly toward the break room. Michael continued working, but kept glancing toward the corridor where Elena had disappeared. When she returned 15 minutes later, her eyes were red-rimmed, her hands trembling slightly as she picked up a box of cleaning products. Everything okay? Michael asked softly. Elena shook her head slightly, turning away from passing customers. The doctor called. Louis's tests came back. They found. Her voice cracked. They found something with his kidneys. He needs more tests, maybe special medicine. The doctor wants to see us tomorrow. You should go, Michael said immediately. Take the day off. I can't. Elena whispered fiercely. I've already used all my sick days when he was in pain before. I need the hours more than ever now. Michael watched as she straightened her shoulders and forced herself to continue working, even as tears threatened to spill. His chest tightened with a strange mix of admiration and shame. Here was someone facing the worst fear a parent could have, yet still showing up, still doing her job without complaint. During lunch, Elena sat alone in the corner of the break room, making phone calls in hushed Spanish. Michael overheard fragments. "How much will it cost?" And, "Is there any payment plan?" The desperation in her voice was unmistakable. Later, as they restocked paper towels, Elena appeared lost in thought. A young mother struggling with a fussy toddler accidentally knocked several rolls to the floor. Before Michael could move, Elena was already there, helping gather the scattered items, speaking soothingly to the embarrassed woman. "Don't worry about it at all," she assured the customer. "My son was the same at that age. Here, let me help you find what you need." After the grateful customer left, Michael couldn't help but ask, "How do you do that?" "Do what?" Elena looked confused. "Be so kind with everything you're going through." Elena looked surprised by the question. "What does one thing have to do with the other?" "That lady was having a hard day. Making it harder wouldn't help me any." That simple wisdom struck Michael deeply. All his business success, his MBA, his executive training had never taught him what Elena seemed to know instinctively. That kindness wasn't just a personal virtue, but a choice you made despite your circumstances. At the end of their shift, Michael noticed Elena lingering by the pharmacy counter, speaking quietly with the pharmacist. When she rejoined him to clock out, her expression was resigned. "The medicine Louis might need. I was asking how much it costs," she explained without being asked. "Even with insurance, it could be hundreds each month. And that's not counting the tests and specialist visits." "What will you do?" Michael asked, already knowing he wouldn't like the answer. "What can I do?" Elena replied with a small, sad smile. "Take more shifts. Skip a few bills. Sell my mother's jewelry, maybe." She zipped up her jacket. "But first, I'll go home and make Louis his favorite dinner. He loves my enchiladas. Some problems can wait until tomorrow." As Michael watched her walk away, shoulders straight despite the weight she carried, he made a decision. Tomorrow would bring changes, not just for Elena, but for everyone at ValueMart. It was time to step out from his disguise and use the power he actually had. Michael spent the next few days in a state of internal conflict. He continued working alongside Elena, watching her arrive each morning with increasingly evident exhaustion. Despite her personal struggles, she never complained, never slacked, and somehow maintained her warmth with customers and co-workers alike. What troubled him most was how often he saw this same pattern repeating throughout his store. The overnight stocker who gave half his lunch to a new hire who couldn't afford food until payday. The cashier who organized carpools for colleagues whose cars had broken down. The department manager who quietly covered for a team member attending her child's school event, despite the strict attendance policy Michael himself had approved years ago. These were the invisible support systems keeping his business running, systems created by employees themselves because the company hadn't provided enough. During his evening call with Brian, his VP and confidant in this undercover mission, Michael's frustration boiled over. "Have you looked at the employee files I asked for?" he demanded. "Yeah," Brian replied cautiously. "Elena Rodriguez has an excellent record. Never late, minimal sick days, consistently positive customer feedback. She's had exactly 2 raises in 8 years, both the standard percentage in our employee handbook." 2 raises in 8 years, Michael repeated, the words tasting bitter. "And her son is sick, possibly seriously. Meanwhile, we gave out executive bonuses last quarter." Brian was quiet for a moment. "Michael, every retail business operates this way. Our compensation package is actually above industry average. The board would have questions if we suddenly—" "I don't care what the board thinks," Michael interrupted. "I care that good people are suffering while working for my company, Brian." The next morning, Michael arrived earlier than usual. He found Elena in the break room, on the phone again, her voice tight with stress. When she hung up, she pressed her palms against her eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, then straightened her ValueMart vest as if putting on armor. "Everything okay?" he asked, setting a coffee beside her. She looked up, startled, then offered a tired smile. "Louis had a rough night." The specialist appointment is next week, but they called to warn me about the cost. Even with insurance, it's going to be over $1,000. She picked up the coffee gratefully. Thanks for this. No problem, Michael said, sitting across from her. So what will you do? Elena shrugged with forced lightness. What can I do? I've been calling around about a second job. Night shift at the hospital needs cleaners. Between that and selling some things, we'll manage. 2 jobs? When would you sleep? Sleep is overrated, she joked, but her eyes revealed the truth. Louis needs me to be strong. Kids shouldn't worry about adult problems. As their shift began, Michael watched Elena interact with a young cashier who seemed upset. He couldn't hear their conversation, but saw Elena put a comforting hand on the girl's shoulder, saw the girl wipe away tears and stand a little straighter afterward. Later, he asked about it. Oh, Tina's having trouble at home. Elena explained while restocking greeting cards. Her mom is sick and she's trying to help with her little brothers. She was worried about being late again. What did you tell her? That family comes first. That she should do what she needs to do, and I'd cover for her if the manager asks questions. Michael felt a pang of guilt. You'd risk your job for her. Elena considered this, carefully arranging birthday cards in their slots. Not exactly. But sometimes the rules don't fit real life. Don't you think? People aren't machines. They have good days and bad days. They have sick kids and sick parents and broken cars. A good workplace understands that. Her words hit Michael like a physical blow. How many times had he sat in boardrooms discussing productivity metrics and absenteeism rates without considering the human lives behind those numbers? That evening, alone in his apartment, Michael made his decision. He laid out his regular clothes, not the worn jeans and old shirts of Mark, but the tailored suit of Michael Daniels, CEO. Tomorrow would be difficult. Elena might feel betrayed, might even hate him for his deception. But he couldn't continue this charade while knowing what he now knew. It was time to stop being undercover and start making real changes, not just for Elena and Louis, but for everyone who had been invisibly holding his company together all along. The morning air felt different as Michael parked his pickup truck in his usual spot at the far end of the lot. Today, he wasn't wearing his worn blue jeans and faded t-shirt. Today, Mark would disappear and Michael Daniels would return. He had chosen a middle ground for his appearance, dress pants and a button-up shirt, not the full CEO suit that would cause a stir before he could even speak to Elena. His heart pounded as he walked through the employee entrance for what might be the last time this way. The weight of anticipation made his steps heavy. 3 weeks of living in someone else's shoes had changed him in ways he was only beginning to understand. Elena was already in the break room, checking her phone with worried eyes. She looked up as he entered, offering a tired smile. "Morning," she said, "ready for another day in frozen foods." Michael shook his head. "Actually, I was hoping we could talk somewhere private first." A flicker of concern crossed her face. "Everything okay? You're dressed differently." "Just, please, it's important." She followed him to the small conference room used for vendor meetings. It was empty this early, the morning sun casting long shadows across the scratched table. Michael closed the door and took a deep breath. "Elena, I haven't been honest with you," he began. "My name isn't Mark Davis. I'm Michael Daniels." Her expression remained blank for a moment, then shifted to confusion. "Okay, so you used a fake name to get hired?" "I don't understand why you're telling me this." "I'm Michael Daniels," he repeated. "The owner of Vaudimart." Her eyes widened, shock replacing confusion. She took an involuntary step back, bumping against a chair. "What? But that's—" She stared at him more closely, recognition finally dawning. "Oh my God, it is you. I've seen your picture in the company newsletter." "I've been working undercover," Michael explained quickly. "I wanted to understand what was happening in my stores, how employees were really doing. I never expected." He trailed off, unsure how to continue. Elena's face hardened, arms crossing defensively. "You've been lying to me this whole time? Pretending to be my friend? Was this some kind of game to you?" "No, it wasn't like that," Michael insisted. "At first, yes, it was just about seeing the business from ground level. But then I met you, worked with you, saw how you treat people, how hard you work despite everything you're dealing with. So this was what? Spying? Checking if we were all working hard enough. Her voice rose slightly, years of job insecurity fueling her anger. Did I pass your test? Michael winced at her words. It wasn't a test. And if anyone failed, it was me. My company. The way we've been treating the people who make everything work. She laughed bitterly. And now what? You go back to your office and write a nice memo about employee morale. Maybe send us all a $5 gift card at Christmas to show how much you care. Her anger was justified, and Michael knew it. He prepared for this reaction, deserved it even. But he hadn't expected how much it would hurt coming from someone whose respect he'd genuinely come to value. I'm sorry, he said simply. You have every right to be angry. But I need you to know that what I learned from you these past weeks is going to change things. Real changes, not just talk. Elena studied his face, searching for sincerity. What kind of changes? First, your son. Michael leaned forward. I want to help with Louis's medical expenses, not as charity. You've more than earned it with years of dedicated work that we've undervalued. I don't want your pity, she responded sharply. It's not pity, it's fixing a mistake, my mistake. No one who works full-time should worry about affording health care for their child. The fight seemed to drain from Elena as she sank into a chair. Why are you telling me all this? Why not just go back to being the boss and make your changes? Michael sat across from her. Because I need your help. Because you understand things about this company that I never could from my office. Because, he paused, struggling to find the right words. Because you've been a better leader in this store with no title than I've been with all my authority. Elena was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. Her expression cycled through disbelief, anger, and finally cautious curiosity. What exactly are you planning to do? She asked finally. Michael smiled, relieved she was at least willing to listen. I was hoping you could help me figure that out. But I have some ideas to start with. As the morning light strengthened, illuminating dust motes dancing between them, Michael began outlining his vision for a transformed value mart, one that valued its people as much as its profits. And despite her lingering feelings of betrayal, Elena found herself listening, then talking, then planning alongside the man she'd known as Mark, but was now beginning to see as Michael. I'll expand part 6 of your story into a 690-word narrative with simple language, engaging content, and a natural tone that follows your guidelines. The morning air felt different as Michael parked his pickup truck in his usual spot at the far end of the lot. Today, he wasn't wearing his worn blue jeans and faded t-shirt. Today, Mark would disappear, and Michael Daniels would return. He had chosen a middle ground for his appearance, dress pants and a button-up shirt, not the full CEO suit that would cause a stir before he could even speak to Elena. His heart pounded as he walked through the employee entrance for what might be the last time this way. The weight of anticipation made his steps heavy. 3 weeks of living in someone else's shoes had changed him in ways he was only beginning to understand. Elena was already in the break room, checking her phone with worried eyes. She looked up as he entered, offering a tired smile. Morning, she said, ready for another day in frozen foods. Michael shook his head. Actually, I was hoping we could talk somewhere private first. A flicker of concern crossed her face. Everything okay? You're dressed differently. Just, please, it's important. She followed him to the small conference room used for vendor meetings. It was empty this early, the morning sun casting long shadows across the scratched table. Michael closed the door and took a deep breath. Elena, I haven't been honest with you, he began. My name isn't Mark Davis. I'm Michael Daniels. Her expression remained blank for a moment, then shifted to confusion. Okay, so you used a fake name to get hired? I don't understand why you're telling me this. I'm Michael Daniels, he repeated. The owner of Value Mart. Her eyes widened, shock replacing confusion. She took an involuntary step back, bumping against a chair. What? But that's... She stared at him more closely, recognition finally dawning. Oh my God. It is you. I've seen your picture in the company newsletter. I've been working undercover, Michael explained quickly. I wanted to understand what was happening in my stores, how employees were really doing. I never expected. He trailed off, unsure how to continue. Elena's face hardened, arms crossing defensively. You've been lying to me this whole time, pretending to be my friend? Was this some kind of game to you? No, it wasn't like that, Michael insisted. At first, yes, it was just about seeing the business from ground level. But then I met you, worked with you, saw how you treat people, how hard you work despite everything you're dealing with. So this was what? Spying? Checking if we were all working hard enough. Her voice rose slightly, years of job insecurity fueling her anger. Did I pass your test? Michael winced at her words. It wasn't a test. And if anyone failed, it was me. My company. The way we've been treating the people who make everything work. She laughed bitterly. And now what? You go back to your office and write a nice memo about employee morale. Maybe send us all a $5 gift card at Christmas to show how much you care. Her anger was justified, and Michael knew it. He'd prepared for this reaction, deserved it even. But he hadn't expected how much it would hurt coming from someone whose respect he'd genuinely come to value. I'm sorry, he said simply. You have every right to be angry. But I need you to know that what I learned from you these past weeks is going to change things. Real changes, not just talk. Elena studied his face, searching for sincerity. What kind of changes? First, your son. Michael leaned forward. I want to help with Lewis's medical expenses, not as charity. You've more than earned it with years of dedicated work that we've undervalued. I don't want your pity, she responded sharply. It's not pity, it's fixing a mistake, my mistake. No one who works full-time should worry about affording health care for their child. The fight seemed to drain from Elena as she sank into a chair. Why are you telling me all this? Why not just go back to being the boss and make your changes? Michael sat across from her. Because I need your help. Because you understand things about this company that I never could from my office. Because, he paused, struggling to find the right words. Because you've been a better leader in this store with no title than I've been with all my authority. Elena was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. Her expression cycled through disbelief, anger, and finally cautious curiosity. What exactly are you planning to do? She asked finally.